Welcome to this week's episode of the What Is My Life podcast, where 5 Black women discuss what the hell is going on inside and figure out what the fuck y'all are doing outside.
That's it.
That's good.
Yes, that is good. Ooh, all right. Well, we'll take us into some What Is My Life moments. We talked about ups and downs in life, like ups and downs in Uno. So how do we deal with those ups and downs in life? What's the What Is My Life moment for the week?
This week, we're going to get into therapy and therapeutic journeys, mental health journeys, wellness journeys, so to speak,
therapy.
and how we got there, how we're doing there, if we left, if we want to come back, and, what things hold us back from doing that, what stigmas or societal pressures, peer pressures, personal shames, all those things, how that affects that process, how it affects whether or not, you feel supported by your people in doing that, or if you feel like you can divulge certain things because of the way people might feel. So I know we in this group have, like, at least what I feel like is a very mature and thoughtful understanding of these things, because listen, well, I don't know about mature. I mean, this is what I'm trying to say.
When it comes to this topic,
I feel like and I don't know if it's our generation or if it's just our group of friends or the people that, that I feel fortunate to know and be around. We have neglected mental health in a way that is literally killing people day in and day out. Whether or not they're physically dead, people are dead walking around with all the different traumas and societal pressures and parenting or lack thereof, or what people think it's supposed to look like. And we want to fix that. You know what I mean? We want to try to make that not how we want to live. And
yeah,
I'm proud of that. And I guess I just want to open it up to you guys for how you feel, or if you've been thinking about that at all.
I think about therapy in general. I think that my family will be the first to tell you that I will be like, therapy. I hear something, I'm like, therapy. I'll be shouting into the clouds because I think it's super helpful. But I would agree. I think that our generation has definitely done our best to be more adamant about advocating for ourselves and our mental health, and figuring out what are the resources, how do I get to the resources, how do I share those resources. And so I would agree, I'm equally proud of that. But I would say I think it's another conversation to be had about what happens when you're doing the work for yourself, or you and maybe your friends are even doing the work, but maybe your family, no one in your family is doing that work. And it's such a huge disconnect. And it's hard because it's like, you don't want to just like toss your family out, throw the whole baby in the bathwater out, but you want to be like, y'all, I'm doing the work and I see the world differently, and the people around me are also equally evolving. And you would hope that your family is doing that too. And that's not always the case. And so I think that's probably the most difficult thing our generation is having with that, knowing that we're trying to take our aunties and cousins and parents along with us, our grandparents along with us. And sometimes we're lucky and sometimes we're not. I know in my case, thankfully, my parents have done an amazing job. We have such an amazing relationship because we're all actively working to do the work. But I can't say the same for my, aunts and uncles. I can't say the same for my cousins. And so it feels strange. It feels strange because you want to hold on to those people, but sometimes you can't.
I would definitely say there's like a big disconnect when you're like doing well and your family's not. Like I was telling you guys, like last week was the first time like my family got me out of pocket in a really long time. And I was just like, I haven't felt this way in a really long time. And I just like hate that this is what, like, I hate that my family can still do that. And all I can say to them is like, you guys need to go to therapy. Like every time like we're having a disagreement or anything like that, I just be like, y'all know I got a list of therapists and they all Black. Like anytime I hear even with my friends too, I'm just like, y'all what I'm hearing is trauma. And I just want you to know it's probably rooted in your childhood. And and I'll be like, guess what? I have a list of therapists. But what I have realized on a side note recently is like having conversations with some of my friends, and I'll be like, like I think we all have issues just from growing up, and it doesn't have to be like my parents beat my ass, but I'm saying like it could be like, oh, like you might have been the favorite or like not the favorite, or and like I think when people hear the word trauma, they think that it literally has to be like I was tied to a table and hid in a shack my whole life. Like it doesn't like you can have childhood issues, but I think a lot of it is just we also have to be like cognizant of how we talk to people about going to therapy. And that's what I've been working on of like, okay, fine, you don't have trauma, but like what I'm hearing is your childhood was decent, but it wasn't amazing. And that's just the reality for a lot of people. So
then that goes to the conversation of what Narisha was talking about destigmatizing therapy and what trauma is. Like you said, not everybody's trauma looks the same, right? It's not always going to be like some I'm getting my ass beat shackled to a table kind of trauma. Like sometimes it is like somebody said something to me and it hurt me. And I've carried that with me for 20 plus years. Like that is still trauma. So it's still, I think there's a broader conversation to be had in the community about how the extent that trauma can go and like what that looks like for different experiences. And I think that's the biggest thing. Cause I think especially in Hollywood, on TV and on social media, like the type of traumas that are displayed are the common ones a lot of it is domestic violence. And I'm not saying that trauma needs to be hidden or downplayed, but that's not the only type of trauma there is. And so again, I think there's a conversation to be had about all the different types of trauma that can apply to your life and, how you can reach out to the proper resources to get help.
Yeah. I mean, I think people who study it would probably say that we just don't, as a society, I don't know if we haven't been conditioned to, or if there's some larger, probably financial reason why we don't. But for some reason, emotional health is not seen as a part of actually being well, when it's just like you cannot have a fully functioning, thriving life and be emotionally unhealthy. You know what I mean? And
that's it.
It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to sit down with a shrink once a week for an hour. It means that at some point, probably everybody should talk to a mental health professional. And it's not like that happens. You know what I mean? People can get into their 50s without ever having a conversation with somebody who is trained to take what you say and maybe make you see that, okay, so you feel like you're doing okay, but you actually have very high functioning anxiety from being pressured as a child too much. And let me show you how to not do that in your life, and you can live better. So I'm hoping that we can continue to remove those walls and have those conversations, and people can talk about their actual experiences in therapy and the good and the bad, to help people know that you can do that. It's just like going and trying to find a good dentist.
Yeah, and what I've heard a lot is like people will be like, my problems are not that bad. Like I don't need a therapist. Like I firmly believe like you don't want to have to go to therapy in response because like you're at rock bottom. Like you can go before it gets that bad, because now sweetie, by the time you hit rock bottom, you're in the state where like you can't even think right to want to get to therapy. Like it's really, that's another big thing I hear a lot of, like, well, my problems are not that bad. Like people got it worse than me. Like, sweetie, your lived problems, your lived experiences are as bad as they are for you. And that's all that matters. It's about you and it's not about anybody else.
And not just that too, Narisha made a good point about like, it's about holistic wellness. It's about living a full and healthy life. And that doesn't just mean, okay, I go to the dentist, I go to the doctor, because some of y'all don't even do that on a regular basis. And I encourage you to do that. But it's like also your mental health, your spiritual health, like all those things need to be taken care of and maintained. So it's like, why would I want to go when I'm in crisis mode? It's like, yes, that's a good time to go, but it's like, that's not the only time that you would need to go to a therapist. You don't go to the doctor only when you need an extensive surgery or you need to go to the ER.
Well, let's talk about that.
Well,
because we can talk about access to quality mental health care as well.
That's true too. Absolutely.
And that's it. That's it right there. The quality, who's doing it, the costs, all of that. You feel me?
Yeah, facts. Because I'll be transparent and be like, I'm currently looking for a new therapist, but the last time I was in therapy was in college, and that was because it was a free resource to me.
Shout out to those campus therapists, man.
Yeah.
Shout out
amazing.
to
Shout
you
out to them.
guys. Shout out to
Mine's
these institutions.
finna call the police on me, so I don't appreciate her, but I guess. She did her job.
Okay, good. No, bro, sis, you was tweaking, not you, sis.
Like, either I call the police or you gonna go ahead and go and volunteer. And I was like, all right, girl, whatever.
So she was doing her
Full
job.
transparency.
Right.
Tell y'all, I'm gonna just tell y'all the story because niggas gonna be like, "What? You went to the crazy house?" Yes, I did. Full transparency. I'm we're gonna get real on the podcast. Told you guys. We're not
Period.
gonna wait for that. I was clinically diagnosed with severe major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety. And I ended up telling my therapist at Marquette that I just kept thinking about walking in front of a car, and she was like, "You know what, girl? Either you're gonna call the police or you're gonna go to the crazy house on your own." So yeah, that was my fall break in 2015. I think spent a couple days in that place and was like, you know what, girl, we'll need to be here. Let's just finagle our way on out because
Bro, everybody I know who's been talks about you have to finesse your way out that motherfucker.
it's not that hard though. You just say, hey, I'm gonna do better and I'll take medicine and let you go. Because again, everything is tied to capitalism. So if they can get you addicted to this pill, or have you on this medication, it's like, cool, you'll be fine. You'll figure it out on your own.
No
When
knocks to our peeps who need to take meds.
I went down
Sometimes
a rabbit
you need 'em.
hole, like where I had one medication, they put me on another one that I didn't need to be on, led to another one, which led to another one, which led to another one. So I got to therapy later and she was like, girl, you are 23 with like 5 medications. Don't do that. So then I cut them all cold turkey and it wasn't a good idea either. But yeah, as I said before, everything is tied to capitalism.
Not you telling your body draw 4.
basically figure it out, abracadabra. And that was a roller coaster. Would not recommend that to anybody. This is a full caveat. We are not mental health professionals and we are just not giving mental health advice. We are just telling you all our experiences. So please don't say the What Is My Life podcast that I should cut all my medicine.
Because I'm gonna tell you, no, baby, I did it.
No, not
on this monitor
vibes here.
Okay.
No hood healer vibes.
Lawyer, y'all. I'm just saying. But so yeah, mental health is some shit. I would personally not recommend waiting until the walls come crashing down. Also, I do believe in self-healing to a capacity. As somebody who has done therapy, and I think it was beneficial for the space that I was in, but now I use my community so much more before I just go through crazy shit and never talk to anybody. Now, as you can tell from what Amir said earlier, I get on their goddamn nerves. So I really just am using my community at this point, but also knowing that I do need to call them into a professional at some point because you can't just exhaust other people in your life too. So
yeah. So how many of us that have, and Tasia, have you?
No.
Okay. What about like things you do to be mentally healthy?
I think it's like Mina mentioned, kind of like the self part, catching my thoughts, the negative thoughts before they get me bad, because they have gotten me bad.
okay.
So I try to just catch them, super quick. And yeah, like you said, the community, like y'all, Sharif, my family, like I like to talk. I like to talk to y'all. So if I can ever crack a joke, if I can ever uplift my spirits, just literally being on the phone with y'all, like that will do it for me. And yeah, Loki, I want to give a shout out to jobs too that pay attention to that. So my job does this thing where you can get like money if you do 3 wellness activities. So they can range from like, you can talk to a nutrition, you can see a financial person, you can like do these online like meditations and take 15 minutes of quiet. Like they'll throw like 15 minutes on our calendar to like take, just stop, so I just appreciate those corporations that do that. So yeah, I kind of just utilize my resources around me because like we mentioned, just the quality and finding someone. Like the other day I was trying to find like a new doctor and I was looking for someone that looked like me. And I was just like, none of these ladies, so that's a part of it.
Right. Absolutely. 100%.
Like, I was just like, I was stuck. So I'm like, bet I got to
You don't have to tiptoe. I refuse to do talk therapy with anybody who's not a Black woman. And that's why I don't have a therapist right now.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
They're all booked and busy, by the way. I have checked with a few that resonated with my spirit in that Milwaukee area,
booked.
and they're booked, baby.
Don't forget, though, we're still in a panini bread, so you can find a therapist in Philadelphia if you want to right now.
Well, no, you have to make sure that their license can transfer
in your state,
that they can practice in the state. That's why when you do things like Talkspace, they ask you what area you live in because they're giving you therapists who do telehealth in your area, not someone in another state.
Oh, throw that shit out.
Yeah, I tried to finesse. I was like, oh, I'm finna get a therapist in Chicago. Right. No, you're not.
I got the like, if you talk to somebody else in another state, you need to check their credentials. I'm gonna keep it a buck because there are a lot of therapists, quote unquote, but what are your credentials, right? Like my therapist is an LPC. She doesn't have a PhD, she doesn't have an MD. So like, you know, they could be social workers, they could be licensed professional counselors, they could have those PhDs. So, and some of these like religious kind of ones, some of them have licensures, some of them don't. So I feel like you also just need to be very careful about who you're going to, because I don't be out here and they're not even a professional, right? They just
absolutely
do better than that because we, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's the other thing to be cognizant of. I don't
Period.
Courts, do you so you've had both experiences where you had in person and online, correct? So my thing right now is I love in person, right? That's just who I am. That's what I would feel comfortable doing. How do you feel the difference, if there is, between the two? You know, pros and cons. Are there any? You feel me?
I will say, I think my caveat is I had my therapist in person, but like, you know, I'm going on like year 3 with my therapist, so I'd already met with her in person. So like transitioning to online, and I have had a few like virtual sessions with her just because of like transportation and stuff before the pandemic. But now that we've been virtual for a year, like it's not that weird for me, but I could see hesitations in like starting virtual with somebody. But I mean, it's over Zoom. It's like this, like our therapy sessions literally are on Zoom. So at least you get to see her. But in terms of how I like the difference, I will say the only thing is like privacy. I've had therapy in my car because that's honestly the most private place. With having a roommate or like with being at home at my mom's, like, you know, even if I lock the door, they will be banging on the door. I've literally had my dad open the door and I'll be like, I'm literally in therapy. And he's like, okay, but can you? And I'm like, no.
You see what I be talking about?
So like my car is usually the safest bet if I know I'm not going to be alone. So I will say that's my dislike with therapy. I do miss going into the office just because it was downtown, but
yeah, I think it was like, for me, so much about my experience being in therapy was going in the room and closing the door and being with that person and the space that they were able to literally make space for me. I think that's probably when I'll get back into it, when people are comfortable being in person.
That's important too. Like, and like using your community is good, but dang, bless you, Pancho. Having somebody that literally is dedicating time to just you, because that's the part where I was able to be honest, because it's like, you're not working on nothing else. You are literally in here for me. It was so bad. I don't even think that I don't think I knew what was going on in my therapist's personal life, because I was the one.
You're not supposed to.
I didn't want to ask, because if I started asking, I would feel bad if you tell me something is going on in your life. And
they're not. They also are not supposed to disclose.
I don't know shit about my therapist.
I mean, and it's like I don't feel bad in that moment, because I really need you to perform a service for me. So in some ways, I have to not think about those other things so I can get what I need. You know,
it's supposed to be the only place you can go and not have to be considerate of the other person. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can say, yeah, it is a little weird because we're used to like, and what's going on with you? You know, how is your marriage going or not going?
That would literally be me making BFS with my therapist or forcing it, which is probably something wrong, trauma, I don't know, but whatever you want to call it. Y'all, and also there's just so much, okay? Honestly, there's so much. Something you think you got this trauma, and all of a sudden, no, it's this trauma, but then it could be this trauma, and then it could be this trauma. So what is it?
It's literally like going into a cave, right? And you're like, okay, this is kind of dark, not too scary. And then you're like, damn, this cave thief is a bitch. It's like you start digging up traumas and you start like learning things about yourself, doing shadow work, and you're like, it's too much. I was just playing. Let me turn around. But you can't turn around. You have to keep going, sweetie.
You want to invite so-and-so to a session? You want to invite them to a session?
No, thank you.
No, wait. So what I said
was scary is that Reach mentioned something about like our generation doing the work, and I don't want to like. It's 2 points I wanted to make. I don't want to over sensationalize this because doing the work hurts and it's hard and it's probably gonna get much worse than it gets before it gets better. Like some people don't do this because you can't deal with unhinging and unfolding all these things and continuing to live your life, pay bills, take care of your kids, go to work, XYZ. But I want to speak to what Tasia said about, it's this trauma and that trauma, this trauma. I also think there's a little bit of like over sensationalization. Is that a word? Whatever. Overly like slapping trauma on everything, But at the same time, everything kind of is trauma because you do in some ways get to define what that is for yourself in some ways. Of course, it's like a clinical definition, but if you say like my mama forced me to eat oatmeal every night resulted in me having this limited, I don't know, palate or whatever the hell, if that's traumatic for you, that's traumatic for you. For somebody else, they'd be like, damn, at least you have food, But you kind of get to define those things for yourself. But
so the funny thing is that when you mentioned that, I immediately thought of a story that my grandpa told me. And shout out to my grandpa. He goes, when he was younger, and to give context, this man is like upper 80s at this point. So he old, y'all. And he goes, when he was younger, his grandmother raised him, and he was like, grandma, like he had to walk to school like miles every day to get to school. And he was like, grandma, yeah, well, he did. He lived in the country in Tennessee. Shout out to Tennessee. And he was like, I'm tired of having to walk to school every day with no shoes. My feet hurt. And his grandma told him, well, baby, some people don't have no feet. And the crazy thing is, like, that is how Black people, like, this is how we're taught to live our lives about, well, at least it's not this bad, or at least it's not this bad. And it's like, no, but like my motherfucking feet hurt. I should have had to walk to school with no shoes.
Hurt. Okay.
Period.
I don't know nobody else with no legs because I'm currently the one in pain. That's what I'm talking about. The whole like my problem isn't as bad as my best friend's problem. That don't matter. That don't matter
at all.
Yeah. And I will say about the whole like unpacking like what Tasia and Amina were saying about like a bunch of stuff coming up, like whatever you go to therapy for, like that's what y'all are gonna focus on. It's not, they're not gonna
there literally isn't enough time. I don't know what you girls think you can fit in 55 minutes, but
they're not gonna be like, okay, so tell me about your childhood and the one time that you like, no, I don't think, because I did go in crisis, like I didn't unpack other stuff for about a year. Like that was focused on what I went there for, which was what was currently going on in my life at the time. Like, so it's not this like ripple effect of like, at least it wasn't for me of well, here's the root of this problem,
Yeah. Your therapist isn't going to do that either. It's not like when you go and get a blood test and they give you a diagnosis or tell you what your levels are. You are going to say something and they're going to take notes and probably after the first session say, okay, this is what I think based on what you said, and I'm going to work on a plan. And then you go, well, hopefully you go back if you like them and they try to help you figure it out. But like Courtney was saying, I went in absolute crisis, big C crisis. So we had a task at hand and it's about that. It's about that first. We didn't get to the other things until I was out of free sessions. Shout out to you, WSCash.
Yeah, I would say, shout out to Marquette. My experience was actually a good one. Loved my therapist. And also, what y'all need to know is that, number one, like, therapy doesn't work unless you're honest, sweetie. So don't be wasting your 55 minutes. Make sure you're being honest in those sessions. Because I will say my very first session with my therapist, I told her straight up, I said, hey, girl, so I noticed that you're a white woman. Ugh, don't like that. So I'm going to let you know that I'm going to be honest with you, but it's going to be hard for me because how can you even relate or understand what I'm trying to say when you're a white woman? You don't even know what it is to experience life as a Black person or a Black woman. And she said, you're right. That's valid. And I'm going to do my best. And I said, okay, that's all I needed to hear. And so I think the relationship was great from there. And so I think, again, had I not been able to even utter those words out of my mouth, I don't think I would have been able to say anything to her. I would have been just sitting in there staring at her and she'd have been like, okay, well, I guess our 55 minutes is up. So it's just like, don't waste your own time. If you're not comfortable, then you're not comfortable. But also know that, like, okay, someone is dedicating however many minutes to you to help you for whatever it is you want help with. So like, use the time wisely and be honest.
I'll also say my first therapist at Marquette was a white man.
Oh, that's going to be a hard pass.
But he like how you said you had that conversation, he prefaced it with like, I'm not even going to try to understand. I'm here to listen. Like, I'm a man and I'm white. There's no way I could possibly understand.
Damn, double homicide.
Seriously. White man, girl, get me out of this office.
For the 6 weeks or however, the sessions they give you, like, it worked. Like, that's what I needed at the time. And I'm just glad that he pressed it, because I'm not the person that would have had that conversation, like you said, or like brought it up, like, okay, so what do you really know? But when I, picked my current therapist, I was very intentional about it. She had to be a Black woman. Like, there was no ifs, ands, or buts.
Like, I think it's something to note too, that like, for those of us who have been in therapy, that like, it's not it's not always like a magical pair, right? You don't always get a therapist that it's like, oh my God, I love my therapist. This is so great. I'm having a good time. Like, sometimes you get a therapist and you're like, I need somebody else. She don't know what the fuck she's talking about.
I was gonna say that, Amir. If you can, there are some insurance plans or therapists that'll let you do like 3 free sessions or a certain number of free sessions for you to see if y'all are a match. If that's an option, definitely ask. I've noticed people that have done that before.
Oh, that's good to know too, because I'll definitely say in my search for a therapist, even prior to even talking to people, sending emails, in my search for a new therapist currently, I'm just scouring their whatever social media they have or their website. And like, if I see a word that I don't even like, I'll be like, it's going to be a no for me. I have to abandon the search. Let me find somebody else. Like, I remember I had just this like 2 weeks ago or a week ago, I came up with a list of like 6 Black women who are therapists that I found in the Milwaukee area that I was like, okay, like, this is a good list. Let me reach out to them and see if they're accepting new clients. I went on their website, and tell me how many I reached out to.
0.
I reached out to 1, and she's booked and busy. The other ones, I'm looking on those websites. I saw words like Jesus. Mm-hmm. I saw words like social work. And I said, hey girl, it's not for me. You're not the one for me, sweetheart. And so, and there are like a bunch of other things that like I saw that just like didn't fit who I was. And I just like, this isn't going to be a good relationship.
Not Jesus.
See, I'm being honest. Like, somebody put Jesus on their website, and I said, so are you a therapist or a minister?
Okay.
Like, what are you saying?
But y'all, there's different types. So like, somebody will need that.
Yes, somebody will need that. And it's not me, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So for me, I saw it. I immediately saw it and was like,
okay. Yeah.
No, because I'm not going to be talking about my problems and you whip out a scripture on me. I'm going to be like, hey girl. Mm-hmm. So
I will say though, just because that's what they practice doesn't mean that's what they'll practice on you.
No, so one of the
if that's like, hey, I know this is your predominant lens. No. Are you able to work with somebody who's
it's in her description that's something that is a part of her practice, which I respect, but like, it's not for me. Mm-hmm. So that is something to be mindful of too, just like Courtney was saying. Like, it's not just the licensure. Like, sometimes these practitioners, they do have websites and social medias for their business, and it's like, do your due diligence. It's not just about checking their licensure, but sending those emails or having those phone calls or even practice sessions if you're insurance or if they allow that. Like, get to know as much as you can and as much as legally is allowed. Know your therapist before you sit down in a chair with them and even waste your time.
Mm-hmm.
because I would hate for people to be turned off to therapy because they have poor experiences, because there are really bad practitioners out there. There are, and that's in any field. Even, you can go to the doctor or to a dentist and have a poor experience, but that doesn't mean you stop going to the doctor, or I would hope that, you don't stop going to the doctor. So it's just it's a trial and error, just like with anything else. So just being mindful of that too.
Any final thoughts?
I guess I was thinking like I was going to ask, what would you all say to somebody? Because I don't know if we talked a whole lot about stigma, like somebody who is concerned about the stigma of looking like a crazy person or feeling like a crazy person, or only psychos go to get mental health help.
Yeah.
Or going and getting a diagnosis that you don't like.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm not the best person to ask for that, but because my philosophy, like I don't give a fuck. Like, this is about me. Period. And I'm the person who's responsible for feeling good. And so, like, why would I give a fuck about what you think? Like, if you want to have piss poor mental health, baby, that's on you. But like, I have to take care of me. I'm responsible for that. So if I don't feel joyous, or if I feel sick, like, I have to take care of that. Nobody else is going to do that for me. And so somebody else having an opinion about how I choose to take care of my mental health is really none of my concern. It really says more about you and your feelings than it does about me. It doesn't really have anything to do with me, to be honest.
That's a therapized response for your ass. See what you can get when you go, kids. No, but I'm serious. To being serious. I understand that, and I know we are so selfish about everything else for the most part. You have to, like, for me and my personal experience, it was a choice that absolutely had to be made. I had to choose to prioritize my mental health, and I think people can be ready for that choice at different times. For some people, it takes crisis, whether that's because of lack of resources or it needed to be something that pushed you into that space. I would say to someone who's like thinking about making the conscious decision and doesn't do it because of how people are going to feel, or maybe you're not you're neurodiverse and you're worried about how people are going to view you for needing medication or whatever, that you can't control your chemical makeup of your brain. And you should be able to be put in a position to have a full, healthy life and be able to understand yourself. What a fucking mistake would that be, and how tragic would it be if you were here and had no bearing or idea on like the stuff that happened to you and how it influenced who you are and how it influences how you interact with other people. It just opens up so much as far as like personal accountability and being able to see yourself and how you act in relationship with people and go back and connect it to something either good or bad and fix or reinforce those behaviors. So however you do it, if it's by seeing somebody on Instagram and they post little therapy things and that unlocks something in you and you start doing personal research and reading books, or if you go straight to talk therapy, just do something. And I guess that would be my advice.
I will say, as far as like stigma, like you don't realize, have these conversations and you might be able to realize like people are in the same situation as you. Like, I remember wanting to go to therapy in high school and like my mom being like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. And I was like, that's not true. Come to find out, like, a little older, like my mom went to therapy herself, right? Like, you have these conversations, like you realize like people feel the same way that you do, and it's only stigmatized because it's misunderstood, right? Like, people don't understand like why you can't figure out things on your own, or why you can't pray about it, or why you can't go to your life coach, for different reasons. Like, it's just misunderstood. Like, people don't realize what therapy is, or like what can happen with it. And the whole thing with medication as well, like that's also stigmatized. Like, I've been on meds myself, like that's cool. Like, but I think I have these conversations, and if the people close to you don't agree, there will be somebody who has gone through it, right? Like us five, like Tasia hasn't gone to therapy, and that's okay. And she's doing fine. But if she wanted to talk about it, she has plenty of people to turn to, right? Like, but I don't think it just want people shutting it down, even if it's your parents, like that should not be a reason for you not to do it because they just don't know better, right? Like we're talking about generations. It's common for their generation to be like, figure it out. You're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. Figure it out. So you're not alone.
Damn, I didn't know I was mute. I was gonna say that thought that like I dealt with this or I dealt with worse, you can do it too. That shit toxic. Well, I say it's helpful situationally, but more so toxic.
It's definitely toxic.
Definitely big toxic energy. It's capital T. We're not doing that. Do you have any thoughts, Tasia, since you're the only one who hasn't been in talk therapy before? Like any thoughts on stigma or anything at all? Like, do you even feel there's any stigma surrounding therapy?
No, honestly, I like from the examples that you guys have given, like I've seen that it's helpful 100%, right? And you guys are blessed to have found the ones that kind of connect well, you know, and can help get you through or talk it through. I guess for me, it's just like I'm chilling. I know that's like
felt.
But like it's like I'm chilling. You know, I've gotten to a place where I'm cool.
That you're okay. You cool. Yeah.
Cool. Now, there were moments where I was like, man, maybe I need to, and I researched and I kind of like got discouraged. So then I was just like, well, figure it out. That's literally, I'm gonna be honest. You know, I know we said that figure it out, but that was the energy I had, and I was like, and I'm gonna do it. And I did it. So, but I do encourage, like, if you honestly, the community to talk to 100%, you know, ask someone. Court always giving us the list, right? If I needed someone, I could ask, hey, what's that list? She'll send it to me ASAP, you know? So I could send you the list too, if you're looking for someone. But yeah.
I almost said
I put a good therapist. Jeez.
Where's the heart?
That's an app. We're gonna put that in a business. We're gonna call something therapist.
Period. Ooh, all right, that was a lot.
I could be scared. Let me tell you something too. I'll be honest. I could be terrified. Okay.
Oh,
let's no, like for real. I could be terrified to overthink someone knowing whatever we talk about. Right. I hop in the chair and I say something, and
would it help you to know that your therapist is legally bound to not say anything? And bound, most of them are bound philosophically by their oath.
Yeah, right. And in my head, I'm like, okay, so like that's how I think, right? I'm legally bound not to say anything. I'm like, girl or guy, whoever, you know, you could go into, yeah, girl, I talked to this one girl today. This is that. That's terrible to think like, but at the same time, that's how I think, you know? And I'm just like, you don't live in my head. You're not me. Like, these are.
You scared they're gonna throw you in the crazy house, sis?
No,
that's also real.
I don't know.
Well, can I ask a question, y'all? And before we wrap this up, I just want to make it super short. One thing that I currently struggle with, and I have struggled with in the past, is about like the concept of being seen, right? So like when you are in therapy, it's like somebody is paying uninterrupted attention to you for an extended period of time. And like, not only are they paying attention to you, but like you're also, for most of the time, are the only one talking. And like how terrifying that can be when you walk through most of your life not really being seen, or like, and I'm not saying like not being seen is like someone not physically seeing you, but like literally not seeing and hearing and understanding you. So walking through life with people not truly acknowledging 100% of who you are, and then you sit in a chair for 55 minutes and have to acknowledge that and put that all on the floor. That's a lot. That is a lot.
Mm-hmm. And it's, you know what I mean? Even when we do this show, as much as we try to like say, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. Once you get to talking, these mics are hot. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And
Fire.
it's catching everything you're saying. And the therapist is literally, they're sitting across from you, scribbling in that notebook.
Being like,
everything you
God
say.
damn.
And
Bipolar.
and they're
Awesome.
smarter than you, right? They're so you can't sit in that chair and tell that lady some convoluted story. She's gonna check you.
Okay.
Skilled professional.
After a while, they also can't hold their face. Like,
Period.
the amount of times,
Come check me. It's over. Sorry.
the amount of times her face was looking crazy. Like, they did not say that to you, or you did not just do that. And I'm like, yes, I did.
Sometimes I'd be like, what you writing? What you wrote? Read
Period.
the notes. What you got in there?
I'm like, girl, that sounded crazy. Erase that. Let me say it again.
She don't take live notes, so that's kind of nice.
I'd like to edit that statement.
Scratch that from the record, boo. It's a lot. So we understand as a unit, we understand that it's a lot, and we encourage you all to go. But we understand that it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yes, we 100%. It's a lot, but go if you want to go. Go if you need to go. Go if you feel the need. Do it, please. Honestly.
Period.
If that's what you want.
All right. Well, that was uplifting, but also a little bit heavy. And so, as always, let's take some time to decompress. I encourage you all, if it serves you, to close your eyes and take a deep breath, because we're going to read an affirmation. So I got 2 today, y'all, and I kind of want to read both of them low key because both cards popped out. So
Do your thing.
The first one is, I am resilient. If my mood wavers, it doesn't stay that way permanently. I allow myself to feel all of my feelings until I can refocus my thoughts on the positive. I do not judge myself for being human because I am resilient. That's your first affirmation for the week.
Okay.
And the second one that came out was, I am healthy. I honor my body and am grateful for the work it does for me every day. I nourish my body through self-care. I rest when I need to rest. I eat nourishing meals when I need to eat, and I exercise when I need to exercise because I am healthy. So y'all, thanks so much for listening to our show this week. Take care of yourself. Remember that you are resilient and you are healthy. And don't forget, we change our opinions like we change our draws, so it could be some new bullshit next week. So again, thank you so much for listening this week's What Is My Life podcast. And you can listen to us bi-weekly on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and whatever other platform you listen to, boo, because we on there.
Thank you for listening to this week's What Is My Life podcast. You can listen to us bi-weekly on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Follow us on Instagram at whatismylifepod or email us at wiml.thepodcast@gmail.com.